I've been in that exact spot where you're eyeing a cheap stereo MIC set for your piano, thinking you've saved a few bucks, only to discover weeks later that the recordings sound flat, the MIC blows out on the low notes, or the cables get tangled into a mess you can't untangle. That kind of buyer's regret is why I pause before I click add to cart, especially when it comes to something as nuanced as a piano MIC. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk through the Neumann MCM 114 stereo set from the Sennheiser consumer audio line, and figure out whether it actually feels like a smarter buy than those budget range alternatives. First off, let's talk about the hesitation most of us feel. A piano is a dynamic instrument. It can whisper with the softest pedal press and roar when you slam the keys. The microphone you choose has to handle that massive dynamic range without distorting, and it also needs to capture the stereo image that gives a piano its natural width. Cheap stereo kits often use two identical cardioid mics placed a few inches apart, which can produce a narrow, phasey sound, and the low end often collapses when you hit a fortissimo chord. The fear, then, is that you'll spend money on a set that sounds good on paper but leaves you with recordings that feel cramped or, worse, a MIC that overloads on a single note. The MCM 114 is built around a single capsule that can serve both loud passages and the quietest pianissimo. That 153 dB maximum SPL rating means you can sit right at the rim of a grand piano, push the keys hard, and not worry about the diaphragm clipping. In practice, that translates to being able to record a live recital in a small hall without pulling back the MIC or adding a compressor just to keep the peaks under control. The fact that Neumann has taken an Electret design and pushed it to their own standards also hints at a level of detail you'll hear in the overtones, the subtle resonance of the soundboard that cheap condensers usually miss. Now, why does that matter for a real-world setup? If you're a home studio musician who records a piano once a week, you probably have a modest audio interface and a couple of decent preamps. The MCM 114's connectivity is surprisingly flexible. It works with most transmitter body packs via a 3.5mm jack, microdot, LEMO, or even a 4-pin connector. That means you can drop it into a wireless system for a stage gig, hook it straight into a portable recorder for field sessions, or mount it on a boom arm for a fixed studio installation. In my own testing, I paired the set with a small Zoom H6 and a mid-range audio interface, and the signal stayed clean, with no hiss or latency issues. The gooseneck connector that rotates without twisted cables is a small but huge convenience. You can angle the capsules exactly where you need them, whether that's directly above the piano lid or tucked into the space between the strings and the soundboard for a more intimate capture. Who should consider buying this set? If you're a pianist who streams live performances, a composer who needs high-fidelity piano demos for film scoring, or a small venue engineer looking for a reliable stereo pair that won't bleed into the rest of the mix, the MCM 114 checks a lot of boxes. The single capsule design also simplifies placement. You don't have to worry about matching two microphones' polar patterns perfectly. You just adjust one head, and the mid-side matrix takes care of the stereo width. That can save you time during a tight recording session when every minute counts. On the flip side, if you're just dabbling with a keyboard in your bedroom and you don't plan to release anything beyond a personal YouTube video, you might be overinvesting. The set does require a decent preamp to fully exploit its dynamic range. Plugging it into a low-quality USB MIC input will likely flatten the nuance that Neumann worked hard to preserve. Also, because the design uses Electret technology rather than a true condenser capsule, you won't get the absolute low-noise floor that a high-end studio condenser would deliver. In a very quiet acoustic environment, you might notice a faint hum that would be invisible with a more expensive, fully balanced condenser pair. Let's dive into a couple of practical scenarios. I set one MCM 114 up for an upright piano in a living room, positioning the gooseneck so the capsule hovered about 8 inches above the middle of the keyboard. I recorded a Chopin nocturne, a piece that sweeps from featherlight arpeggios to powerful chords. The MIC captured the delicate high-frequency sparkle without sounding brittle, and the low notes retained their body without any audible distortion. The mid-side decoding I performed in post gave me a wide soundstage that made the piano feel like it was sitting in a small concert hall rather than a cramped living room. In another test, I attached the set to a wireless transmitter and took it on stage for a small jazz trio gig. The pianist.